Hello to everyone, and welcome to the AI Time Journal podcast. Today, joining me is Tony Boobier, an AI and analytics expert, mentor, consultant, and author of 3 books, namely Analytics for Insurance, Advanced Analytics and AI and the Future of Banking. Tony has a deep industry knowledge and proven experience as a past executive and now as an independent expert, mentor, consultant, and advisory board member. Frequent conference presenter and chairman, academic course director and visiting lecturer, professionally qualified in engineering, insurance, supply chain management, and marketing. He's also a digital eminence with a strong international experience and has a special interest in growth markets. Included in the top 20 global thought leaders on AI. Well, hi, Tony, and congrats on this marvelous background and welcome.
Thank you very much. It feels like I've been very busy, but it just seems to have happened quite naturally, really.
Really nice. I wanted to ask you, looking at your education, you have a civil and structural engineering background. Thus, I wanted to know, at what point did you realize that you wanted to pursue a career in analytics and AI, and how did you get into it?
Kind of interesting that when you are younger in your career, it's not always obvious which direction your career will take you in. With my particular story, I started off as a structural engineer, and at university they taught me how to build things, how to construct things. But I was actually more interested in what happened when buildings fell down, and structures fell down. So it was a sort of reverse engineering. And of course, when things fall down, inevitably they are linked to some sort of insurance cover. So engineering took me into the world of insurance. Insurance is a heavily data-driven industry, and that took me deeper into data and towards analytics. And from that, I moved away from insurers towards technology vendors and ultimately to the world of AI. So I guess really AI found me rather than me finding AI.
That's really interesting. I was not expecting this, to be honest. And what inspires you about working in AI?
Well, I think firstly, we need to recognize that AI is such a broad topic. There are so many elements to AI. You can either look at individual elements such as geolocation or facial recognition or palm recognition or payments. And you can take part in the AI journey by being an expert in all of those areas. What really inspired me was the ability of AI through any and all of those components to leverage the power of data. It's wonderfully transformative, but also it helps fulfill a vision of the future. You have a picture in your mind about what the future might look like, and you kind of wonder how you will get there through this data era with all the technology. And for me, AI was just such an irresistible topic to follow.
Oh, nice. Is there any advice would you give to someone who wants to get into the data science sector today?
Well, as I mentioned to you, there's so many elements of AI and data science, and you can really choose any of the ones that you're particularly interested in. If you study geography at university, perhaps, maybe geolocation may be something which is very appealing to you, because after all, everybody and everything is somewhere. And of course, AI is very heavily dependent on location analytics as a component. But it may be to do with, you may have an interest in regulation, because AI will have a part to play in the regulation story, or any of the other technologies. So as an individual, you can choose to do any of those parts. But a different route may well be around selecting an industry. Perhaps if you have a particular interest in retail or manufacturing or engineering or law, maybe your way forward is to think about how AI, with all its multiple components, might fit into that story. That it's not simply a question of having a set of technologies and kind of throwing them to the wall and hoping they will stick on one particular subject or one particular sector, but rather that particular industries, and we may talk about them in a moment, have particular needs and therefore have particular desires for AI and advanced analytics to help them fulfill those obligations.
So we at the AI Item Journal are currently working on an ebook on AI insurance trends, in which we will basically gather top insurtech experts and organizations' insights to kind of assess the state of the industry. And since you, Tony, are a navigated expert in the insurance sector, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions on this. So where do you see the biggest potential of applying AI in the insurance industry in the coming years? And which trends and challenges do you think are the most significant?
That's a really interesting question, Rhenz, and a great topic for you to follow, because insurance is a global industry. And one of the amazing things about the insurance community is that all over the world, we are faced with the same types of issues, and we all speak the same sort of language and are very interested in what we are doing in different continents. Insurance really has three key elements to it. The issue of risk, both in terms of the underwriting risk, but also risk management. The second one is the issue of operational management. In other words, how can you do things more effectively for less cost? And the third is the issue of customer centricity. In other words, how do you provide a solution to the customer which meets their individual or corporate needs? So wherever you look in the insurance world and the insurance sector generally, you'll find that these three key imperatives are all featuring. Maybe different companies and different geographies have different priorities, but fundamentally, there are only three key elements that you have to focus with. And AI has a part to play in all of those. AI will help insurers understand better insight into the risks they are taking. AI will help organizations automate the process and therefore provide more effective solutions more quickly and less expensively. But also AI will help to create hyper-personalized solutions, instead of having one solution or one product which meets the needs of many, rather the ability to provide insurance products which meet individual needs. We call it hyper-personalization.
So which one of the three do you think insurance companies could leverage more in AI and analytics to make customers more happy, like happier and more satisfied?
Well, again, it becomes a matter of the geography you're working in. So if you look at Western Europe, for example, there are arguably too many insurance companies. So therefore, the level of insurance penetration is very high, and therefore insurance tends to be quite commodity driven, very price driven. And therefore, insurers constantly are looking to get above the issue of price and start adding value to the product. So that's kind of an issue for Western Europe. But if you go into other territories, such as Latin America, Malaysia, China, for example, where you don't have that level of insurance penetration, their particular interest is one of growth. How do they achieve not just growth, but profitable growth? And therefore, the ability to use advanced analytics, which provides insight from both structured and unstructured data, does unlock the door to provide profitable growth. So again, the three key imperatives, but they have different priorities depending on the market you are addressing.
And how do you think insurance company could prepare even more for the changes in the industry brought by AI technology?
Well, I think the first issue really is one of leadership. I think insurers are recognizing already that data is very powerful. But there's a very interesting debate around the issue of, is it possible to automate decisions, or do you need a combination of human intervention and automated decision making? And if you need the combination, where do you draw the line? So that's an interesting cultural debate, I think, around how organizations are structured. The challenge for leaders, of course, is that they are going forward into a world that they have no real experience of. Nobody has really ever lived in a world which is so data infused and so AI infused potentially. So our leaders aren't quite flying blind, but they have to use their imagination. At times you need to be a little brave and a little bold, but more importantly, they need to recognize that this is the future. The proverbial AI genie is out of the bottle, and nobody will put that genie back in. So therefore, they need to recognize not only the power of advanced technology and AI, but more particularly how to structure their organization to implement it effectively.
Really interesting. I'd like to move now to a more personal question, because I'm now working on a master's thesis on the US and China relationship regarding the 5G technology. And I'd like to know your opinion on this. As you may know, indeed, the US and China are currently fighting to lead the way for the world's implementation of the 5G technology. That it's said to be shaping basically the world's future for the next 20 years. Do you reckon that this competition would enhance or diminish AI's development?
I think competition is always a good thing. I think it drives individuals and organizations to make progress at a pace which otherwise they wouldn't normally have done. So I think the reality is, if it wasn't the US and China, then it would be the US and somebody else, or it would be two companies within the US or two companies within China. So competition is a very key element in terms of making progress. 5G is a very interesting topic, mainly because I think it will become the catalyst to unlocking new sources of data, which will help not just insurers, but all types of industry make more progress, particularly around automation and AI. And we think in terms of insurance, but insurance is a broad issue. It stretches into healthcare, and healthcare, of course, is a matter for the insurance community. And 5G may transform the way that we look after our elderly people when they are not able to look after themselves in the same way. So 5G becomes critical. The better the 5G, the more effective the devices, the better the usage of data, the greater insight, the more effective and successful the actions we can take. But it's not a 5G gig, insofar as that 5G isn't just the issue going forward. There are major cultural issues going forward in terms of our confidence, our acceptance, our willingness to integrate with the machine in a way that we've never done before. So, 5G is key. Cultural acceptance is key. But finally, we can't forget the issue of quantum computing. And quantum is really just around the corner. And in the same way that you mentioned the battleground between countries around 5G, there's equally a battleground around quantum. People are thinking in terms of the first use cases for quantum occurring in the next 3 to 5 years. And that will be as transformative a topic, maybe more so than AI. But it all forms a part of a wonderful triangle, a wonderful matrix. I think the thing we can be sure of is that going forward, certainly in the next 3 to 5 years, maybe sooner, maybe a little later, the world is just going to start looking very different. The services we get, the insurance coverage we get, the way we buy things and sell things and talk to each other, it's just going to be so much fun. And the joy of actually jumping on that train and being in the front carriage and leading it is much more appealing than missing the train and having to wait for the next one to come along.
Really nice, really nice. Well, Tony, thank you for your time and these brilliant insights. We are really glad we had you today, and so thank you very much again.
That's my pleasure. Thank you.